Still waters run deep. The Consolidated Savannah River area is a community that is richly rooted in Black history. Throughout Black History Month, we've highlighted a few locals who have achieved national success and recognition. Professional boxer Vernon Forrest, gospel legends the Swanee Quintet, opera singer Jesse Norman, Hollywood actors Reggie Lewis and Shay Roundtree, social activist and singer-songwriter James Brown, WNBA player and coach Taj McWilliams Franklin, and aviation entrepreneur Jamel Larkins. Now let's dig a little further into the Black history roots of the CSRA. Edward M. McIntyre became the first and only African-American mayor of Augusta, Georgia in 1981. He had previously served as the first Black county commissioner for Richmond County. A graduate of Morehouse College, McIntyre worked for the Pilgrim Health Life Insurance Company before beginning his political career. One of McIntyre's most noted accomplishments as mayor was the creation of the Riverwalk along the long-ignored Savannah River levee. Founded in Augusta in 1898, Pilgrim Health and Life Insurance Company became the first insurance provider for African Americans in Georgia. Solomon Walker, a Black grocery delivery boy, had the idea to start the company after repeatedly crossing paths with white insurance salesmen in the neighborhood. Walker enlisted the help of three other young Black men, Thomas Walker, Walter Hornsby, and James Collier. In 1923, Pilgrim began issuing policies in Alabama and 7 years later in South Carolina. In 1951, the company received a license to operate in Florida. By 1948, Pilgrim had paid more than $14 million in benefits to its policyholders and beneficiaries, while providing jobs for more than 700 Black Augustans. In 1991, Pilgrim merged with Atlanta Life, leaving Augusta after 90 years of business in the city. Frank Wills was born February 4, 1948, in North Augusta, South Carolina. After earning his GED in the Job Corps, Wills landed a job in Washington, D.C. as a private security guard at the Watergate office building. On the night of June 17, 1972, he noticed a piece of duct tape on one of the door locks when he was making his rounds. He removed it and continued on his patrol. When Mr. Wills returned, he saw that the tape had been replaced and called in the police. This triggered the chain of events which exposed the Watergate scandal and eventually led to the resignation of U.S. President Richard Nixon. Few people, including the students who attend these Richmond County schools, know much about those people whose names grace their buildings, signs, and letterheads. Since the origin of Georgia's act to establish a system of public instruction in 1870, it was a usual practice to name schools after educational figures. Over time, the practice has gone by the wayside somewhat, with many schools, including all those in Columbia County, now being named for locations or street names. A.R. Johnson Health Science and Engineering Magnet School is named for Augustus Robertson Johnson, born in February of 1853. Johnson was revered in the community and was affectionately known by his nickname, Professor, as in Professor Johnson. He taught for 39 years in Richmond County schools before he died in October of 1908. C.T. Walker Magnet School was named for the Reverend Dr. Charles T. Walker, who started one of Augusta's first minority newspapers, the Augusta Sentinel, in 1884 and founded Tabernacle Baptist Church in 1885. Born a slave in Hepzibah in 1858, Dr. Walker was orphaned at age 8. His father died a day before he was born, and his mother when he was 7. In 1873, while young Walker was hoeing cotton, he decided to seek the Lord. Without saying a word to anybody, he jumped over the fence and went into the woods, where he stayed without eating or drinking for 3 days until he was happily converted. Thirsty for knowledge, young Walker had only $6 when he entered school. He rented a room in a private family for which he paid $2 per month during his first year at the Augusta Baptist Institute. He did his own washing and cooking only twice a week, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, in order to save time for study and keep down expenses. T.W. Josie High School was named for Dr. Thomas Walter Josie, a physician in his native Augusta, who was born in September of 1881. He received his medical degree from Howard University and began his practice in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where he spent 2 years before returning to his native Augusta, and continued in active practice for 43 years until his unexpected death in August of 1956. Lucy C. Laney High School was named for Lucy Craft Laney, an 1873 graduate of Atlanta University. She was born in Macon, Georgia on April 13, 1854, just 11 years before slavery ended. She is the founder of Haynes Normal Institute, the first black kindergarten in Augusta, and the first black nursing school in Augusta, the Lamar School of Nursing. Known as the mother of the children of the people, her portrait hangs in the Georgia State Capitol. Miss Laney's Augusta home was restored as the Lucy Craft Laney Museum of Black History. Tutt Middle School in Augusta was named for John M. Tutt, a math professor at the Haynes Normal Institute, who established himself as a successful coach both at Haynes and Lucy C. Laney High Schools in the 1950s. He was also on the faculty of Boggs Academy, an all-black private school in Burke County. W.S. Hornsby Elementary School was named for Walter Spurgeon Hornsby Sr. He owned Hornsby McCoy Realty Company, and he was also president and co-founder of the Pilgrim Health and Life Insurance Company in Augusta, Georgia. Mr. Hornsby died in 1956 at the age of 74. Collins Elementary School was named for Ursula Collins, a black woman who was born September 16, 1863. Miss Collins was principal of A.R. Johnson Magnet School and Silas X. Floyd Elementary School. She was such an outstanding principal at Steeb Elementary School that the school was renamed in her honor in 1951. Mr. Silas X. Floyd was a minister, educator, poet, and writer. He authored the biography of the Reverend Dr. Charles T. Walker. The Equal Opportunity Authority's Head Start Pre-Kindergarten School in Augusta, Georgia was named in Mr. Floyd's honor. In 1820, Augusta allotted 40 acres of land where slaves were laid to rest in wooden boxes or were simply wrapped in cloth and buried in unmarked shallow graves. The first record of burials at Cedar Grove Cemetery were recorded in July 1840. It reads, 6 blacks, 2 of whom children. At that time, names of the deceased or their masters were not listed. It wasn't until June 1862 that the records began to show the colored report, giving date died, names were sometimes given, disease, age, sex, wards in which they lived, and their slave owners' names. In June of 1865, the report started listing the deceased as freedmen instead of property. Notable graves at Cedar Grove include James Carter Sr., Augusta's first black dentist, Silas Floyd, C.T. Walker, W.S. Hornsby, A.R. Johnson, T.W. Josie, Mrs. Amanda Dixon Toomer, the richest black woman in the United States in 1885, and the unknown bones. 8 boxes of unknown persons' bones were buried at Cedar Grove Cemetery in one vault on November 7, 1998. The bodies were stolen over 150 years ago for the Medical College of Georgia with the assistance of their slave, who later became their janitor, Mr. Grandison Harris. The school used the stolen bodies as cadavers. Grandison Harris earned the nickname the Resurrection Man. As persons were buried at Cedar Grove, Grandison was sent to steal them that same night. Ironically, Mr. Harris was buried in Cedar Grove when he died in 1911 at age 95. When the bodies of those stolen from their graves by the Medical College of Georgia were discovered buried beneath the school, it nearly caused riots in the streets of Augusta. This monument was erected in 1998 as a public apology to the families of those who were stolen from their graves 100 years before. The Lenox Theater was built in 1921 on 9th Street in Augusta with a seating capacity of 780. The theater was one of the businesses that made up the famous Golden Blocks district. Local leaders, including physician George Stoney, bakery owner John Waring Sr., and two postal workers, John Norfleet and William Wilburn, established the theater. The four partners hired Augusta architect G. Lloyd Preacher to design the Lenox. Preacher's work included both the Imperial and the Majestic theaters in downtown Augusta. At the time of its construction, it was known as the finest black theater in the South. In 1977, the city of Augusta bought the Lenox. A year later, the structure was torn down. Penny Savings Bank was one of the first independently black-owned banks in Georgia. Established in 1910, it was erected at the corner of what are now James Brown and Laney Walker Boulevards in the historic Golden Blocks area of downtown Augusta. A group of 15 black entrepreneurs pooled their resources to establish the bank. The bank thrived until the Great Depression. It declared bankruptcy and merged with an Atlanta bank in 1928. The building has been restored and the space rented to a variety of businesses over the years. In 2011, the Augusta Commission Board voted to buy the structure from the descendant families of the original owners for $175,000. Springfield Baptist Church has national significance because it is the oldest African American church of any denomination in the history of the United States. It is an example of the determination of African Americans to be independent during the slavery era. The Georgia Republican Party, as well as Morehouse College, which has produced so many national black leaders, originated within the walls of Springfield. Tabernacle Baptist Church was formally organized as the Beulah Baptist Church in August 1885. The founding pastor of the church was the Reverend Dr. Charles T. Walker. At the request of Reverend Walker, the name of the church was changed, by unanimous vote, to Tabernacle Baptist Church. The enrolled membership of the church was 310. A church edifice was constructed on Ellis Street in downtown Augusta. Tabernacle grew rapidly, and by 1889, just 4 years later, the membership of the church had reached 2,000. In 1913, Tabernacle sold the Ellis Street property and purchased the site of its current location on Gwinnett Street, which was later renamed Laney Walker Boulevard, in honor of the Reverend Walker and Miss Lucy C. Laney. The towering twin sanctuary was designed to accommodate 2,300 people.
There's a town in Georgia that I once called mine, just across the muddy water from the Carolina side. They say home is a place you go where they always take you in. I don't know if it's really so, but I'm going back down again. Oh, Augusta, take me